I think that it was always wrong to be proud to be code monkey. It's just that now it is becoming more evident than ever. When I hear people, oh, I'm so proud of this code and this and that, I think that was never the real value. Knowing what to do and when to do it and how to do it and why to do it, that's the real value.
This is DevOps Paradox, episode number 317, The Human Cost of AI Automation in DevOps. Welcome to DevOps Paradox. This is a podcast about random stuff in which we, Darren and Victor, pretend we know what we're talking about. Most of the time, we mask our ignorance by putting the word DevOps everywhere we can and mix it with random buzzwords like Kubernetes, serverless, CI/CD, team productivity, islands of happiness, and other fancy expressions that make us sound like we know what we're doing. Occasionally, we invite guests who do know something, but we do not do that often since they might make us look incompetent. The truth is out there, and there is no way we are going to find it. P.S. It's Darren reading this text and feeling embarrassed that Victor made me do it. Here are your hosts, Darren Pope and Victor Farsick.
Victor, it has been quite the ride trying to learn all this AI stuff. And I was thinking today, we need to start thinking about the humans in the mix. Now, obviously the humans are driving the AI, or at least so we think. But what are the real costs, the real human costs that we're seeing now? I mean, I think it's still too early to know, but what do you think?
Human cost will be tremendous. We will see demonstrations across the globe. We will see, this will be soon we will reach the biggest critical point in history of this planet in a while because of AI. It's going to be very, very complicated. Is that a good start? I mean, it will be really, really tough. So here's what's happening, right? Let me think of some example, right? I don't know in States, but for example, in Europe, there were days when cities were completely blocked by taxi drivers because Uber just arrived, right? And it's basically taking them out of business or changing the way how they do business. They were not necessarily willing to adapt, or it was not good for them, and so on and so forth, right? And there were tough moments in cities across Europe a while back. Now imagine when something like that starts hitting everybody at the same time, more or less, right? Accountants, lawyers, doctors, everybody. That will be very complicated for society, for governments, for everybody to deal with. Very tough. Right? Change is always tough, but changes typically affect a single profession at a time, right? Now we're going to have changes that affect almost everybody at almost the same time. We're not there yet, just to be clear. But that's coming very, very soon.
The earlier examples used to be, would you like fries with that? And now you don't need to have that person anymore. What is the would you like fries with that in our space? What do you think those, I'm going to call it lower end jobs, nothing against them, but entry level jobs, I guess is the better way to say it. Which ones of those are going to start being consumed
within
by
software
agents?
Industry?
Yes.
Junior positions to begin with. And that's already happening. We already see that. There are statistics already that show that unemployment among recent graduates is at record high in our industry. Right? It's hard to find jobs right now because, if a company starts implementing AI and so on and so forth, what is the first group of people that is being replaced in a way by AI? Well, people without experience. Because somebody still needs to drive AI. Somebody still needs to know what they're doing. We're not even close to having AI create a backend application that will solve my problems, right? We're not there yet. So somebody needs to drive it. And who needs to drive it? Well, experienced person. Because that's happening without AI, just to be clear, right? Who who is driving new features, new applications, new architectures, experienced people. who is implementing what those experienced people are driving, less experienced people. That's with or without AI. Now, if the entity doing it under supervision of an experienced person is AI, that means that you need less juniors.
I have a story to tell of that, sort of. So I was at church this past weekend, at least when we were recording this, and a kid was talking about he'd been vibe coding something of just something for doing technical stuff, technical production type stuff. And I went, okay, my ears perked up and I was listening. I was like, explain to me again what you're trying to do. Blah, 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 blah. I was like, how long have you been working on it? He said, oh, not too long, maybe like 3 or 4 days. I said, now tell me again how old you are. 15. 15. This is a conundrum, right? Because if I could get that kid in 3 years, I would hire him without even blinking. As long as he stays on this path.
Yes and no.
Okay. Why? Because here's the reason why I'm saying that. This is the reasoning, and maybe this is the thing. Let's say I wasn't as good with AI. Not that I am good with it, but let's say I'm not as good with it as I am. But I could hire a super junior, I'm making up phrases now, that is really good with AI. And I could interface with the human easier than I could interface with the AI for now. And I could get him for, $40,000 a year, $50,000 a year.
True.
Right?
But
but that's not normal. That is an edge case, I think. But it is something I think we have to start looking for as we're hiring in the future. Yes,
if you're hiring juniors. But think of it from this perspective, right? AI is doing stuff, writes code, performs operations, whatever, right? And somebody is instructing AI what to do. Now, what is apart from understanding how AI works, and that's a required skill, what is the most important requirement for that person? To understand your system very, very well. So senior people, and when I say senior, not necessarily in age, but people who spent already some time in that company, right? They can instruct AI and say, okay, do this and that and do it like this and do it like this because this is how we're doing it and so on and so forth, right? Now that junior, very experienced with AI itself, but he has no idea. You're a healthcare company, kind of like he has no idea what the heck are you doing. Right? Does not have that, let's call it domain knowledge, right? That was always important, even though people not necessarily everybody puts a lot of importance for it to it. I think that's one of the most important things for engineers. And now it's going to be even more important, right? Because somebody needs to instruct AI what to do, and those instructions needs to be based on the domain knowledge. And domain knowledge is the knowledge about the industry, let's say healthcare, knowledge about the company that already has some system, and so on and so forth, right? Now, if you put your question differently, hey, everybody in my company, with or without domain knowledge, is experienced with AI. Should we hire that kid a few years from now? Then the answer is yes. But if your existing workforce gets upskilled with AI, then they have that knowledge, that advantage of domain knowledge.
I would agree with that only if we've actually been able to get the domain knowledge into the AI so it can actually be used.
In this case, what I mean by domain knowledge, I mean, hey, don't do it like this, do it like that, because that's how we do stuff. Now, there is a separate discussion now, how can actually companies inject all the knowledge. Until now, I was talking about domain knowledge as in locked in people's heads. A separate discussion is how do we convert domain knowledge of a company into something that AI can digest, like wikis, Slack messages, Zoom conversation, blah, blah, blah. That would be a separate discussion. But in this context, I mean, what I have in my head and you don't, because you don't work in healthcare.
Well, doesn't that lead to the point that even if we get all of this in place, isn't that going to need more human oversight than not? Or is it going to be the same amount of human oversight that we have today with other humans?
It will be more human oversight than we needed before, because all of a sudden, most of what we do is oversight, right? Before, you had a manager that just drops you an email, I want this done by tomorrow. And now you are actually passing that message to AI, converting that we need to have this done by tomorrow into something that AI understands. Create a new web service, do it in Azure, giving it detailed instructions. Overall, it will be faster and we will need less time to do the same amount of work, but most of the work will become oversight or instructions giving type of work. Think of it like, in many companies, especially enterprises, you have one or more people that are architects, right? That figure out everything, and then everybody else acts as a code monkey and just doing what that architect is, put it on a whiteboard, right? Something like that. That will be the job, and we will need more of those.
So we used to be proud of being code monkeys, and now not so much?
I think that it was always wrong to be proud to be code monkey. It's just that now it is becoming more evident than ever. When I hear people, I'm so proud of this code and this and that, I think that was never the real value. Knowing what to do and when to do it and how to do it and why to do it, that's the real value. Being able to type it on a keyboard, that's not the real value. That's just something that had to be done. And now that had to be done is increasingly being done by AI. So people are left with, let's say that 20% of your time you were spending on what and how and why and when, and that was the real value. And 80% you were spending on typing. Now you will be spending 40% in total on what and when and how and why, and the rest of the 60% on watching Netflix.
Well, if you kept your subscription up, or if you decided to change your Netflix subscription over to one of your AI subscriptions, like I have done.
To be clear, I don't think that on a long run we will be losing jobs. Just I want to put that out there because I sounded very pessimistic. I think that just on a short run there will be a lot of trouble. But eventually we will get to the same place we are now.
I think the job count may be the same, even greater. What we do in those jobs is going to be different.
Correct. Just like when we got tractors, and then probably a lot of people were really, people doing manual work on fields were very, very afraid. But ultimately, we did not end up with less jobs because of the tractor.
No, especially once the tractor got air conditioning, it was even better because it was more bearable. And that's actually sort of a joke and not. It's like you start out with the initial tractors and look at tractors of today. Yeah, they're still tractors, but the quality of life for the person operating that machine has gotten way, way better.
Oh, yeah. And eventually, I would be surprised that if I would find out that we have the same number of people working in agriculture, it's just that we produce so much more food.
Are you concerned about us losing tribal knowledge? It seems like if we do it right, we actually should have better and longer term tribal knowledge than we've ever had before.
Yeah, I mean, it will the tribal knowledge will be transforming just as it has been transforming for a while, right? You could say the same thing with the emergence of Google, right? Do you have to memorize everything because it's so hard to find it in Encyclopedia Britannica? No. So knowledge changed with Google, and it will change with AI as well. You do not necessarily need to know all the details. Like, if you're configuring EC2 instance, you don't have to anymore memorize every single field. You don't have to do it.
Not that you would want to do it and know it anyway. That would not be something I would want to put on my resume. I know how to create an EC2 instance without having to look it up.
Exactly. I know it by heart.
It's not something that needs to be on the CV. I think with the tribal knowledge, though, it's different. You started going down the path there. Encyclopedia Britannica, I'm going to leave all that in just because it got so bad, was consumed by Google or the search engines, right? We could go back to Lycos and Excite until, okay, now it's Google. And now we've got the AIs. I was going to name off names, but it's just the AIs that has now gone out and scraped all of Google. Well, not scraped Google, but traced through everything. I don't know internally inside companies how that's going to work out. I mean, sure, you've got RAG, you've got all these other things, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But what's the chances of people actually getting things out of their head and into something that can be consumed by whatever AI tooling we're using? I mean, some people will think, oh, I need to keep that. I don't want to give that away.
Give that away to AI?
Yes.
I mean, you will be forced to. I mean, forced to not in a physical sense, but by competition, right? Because those companies who are actually feeding AI with internal data will be more successful.
I'm thinking about myself right now. I am hopefully 5.5, 6 years away from being able to retire. Now, I am not the person that makes a big difference in my day-to-day company. I mean, I make some impact, but it's not like I'm critical. But there are some things that I do know, assuming I was to retire early, like next week, that if I had all that out, it's like, so what? I've left the company. It doesn't matter. All of my knowledge has been left behind. That's what we want, right? Or excuse me, that's what the companies want. Maybe that's not what we want.
It's not a new problem, though.
No, it's not a
I
new
know
problem.
quite a few cases where a key person in operations leaves the company and company is completely lost. We have no idea. We have that application. I had no idea. It does something that actually, if it stops working, everything breaks. I had no idea. How it works, beat me. There are those cases. Nothing to do with AI, right? People tend to protect their positions by keeping not everything, some things in their heads. And some other people document it, right? The first group is wrong. It's wrong for the company. Now whether it's good for you, that's separate debate.
Well, the only thing that's good is if you've left and they need help, they'll bring you back at a higher contracting rate.
In the past, when that person leaves, what can you do? You need to find a person who is going to spend time to figure out what that person knew, because eventually everything is code one way or another, right? Everything can be discovered. You just need to go through it all and figure it out and connect all the dots and so on and so forth. Now, if that person leaves, it's going to be easier than before to retrieve that knowledge, because knowledge is never only in the head, at least not in our industry. As a minimum, it is in some server somewhere.
Somewhere. And that's the key part is where is that somewhere?
It's somewhere. Yeah, scan it. Find it, go.
We'll see if that ever happens. Are you concerned about creating any kind of risk, or do you see any risks in having sort of this two-tiered system? The people that are AI enabled and traditional workers that just don't want to pick it up and go?
It's going to be a problem initially, right? Because that adaptation period is always complicated, right? Some people are already crazy about it. Some people are thinking whether to upskill themselves. Some people are rejecting it. Then it's going to hit us hard. And some people are going to be left in the dust. That happens always. My concern is that it will happen to too many professions at the same time. But if you look at it individually, it's nothing truly new, right? So I'm not concerned on the long run. I think we will be more proficient and more productive, and that's a good thing. Just we need to survive that short period to get to the long-term one.
What do you have to say to the people that are flat out rejecting it? That believe, and mind you, I am still one foot in this camp, that want to create artisanally crafted code and all the solutions and don't believe a machine should be helping them actually get their job done, even though they're using a computer to do it.
Well, I hope that your company shares your opinion. Because some companies do, just to be clear. Some people are rejecting change, and sometimes that rejection is not individual, but on a company level. So I hope that you're in that company. That's what I hope. Otherwise, you're out. Because your colleagues are going to be more productive. And then somebody's going to start wondering, why do we need this person? Right? And you will be out and you will be left in the dust. I mean, didn't we have people like that when cloud appeared? Oh, I'm artisanal. I know when I put the cable in that box, I know which cable I put in. Right? I control things. I make it well. I don't trust these AWS folks to plug it into a machine, right? Who knows, right? Handcrafted. We always get that.
I think we should still have it in the future, though. There are still use cases where that is the correct answer.
Oh, absolutely. But that's like almost all artisanal jobs, right? But those are rare. Those are not common. It's not like hundreds of thousands of people will be doing that job. No. There is always need for artisanal, like, making cars. Are there people who manually assemble cars? Yeah. Are they more than, 0.5% of total cars produced? Probably not. Right? So, I don't know, Rolls-Royce, I'm inventing now. I don't know. I'm just assuming Rolls-Royce, expensive, hand assemble by artisan people, amazing. But don't count on that being common.
Maybe a better one is watches.
Yeah, watches.
A high-end Rolex versus a mass-produced wind-up.
Yeah, for example. Of course.
But in both of these cases, the artisanals doesn't necessarily mean the workers working on that are making more money. They might be. But the companies are making a heck of a lot more money.
Yeah. Well, handmade, good price. Especially if you can do, depends also, depends on a country you're in, right? You can make handmade watches in Switzerland, Rolex, right? Because Switzerland as a country has that renommee. You're willing to pay extra for a watch coming from Switzerland. Now, if they would be assembling by hand watches in Spain and charging it like 100x, like Rolexes, nobody would buy it because you can. I'm not buying handmade watch from Spain. So you need to be privileged in a way for the location, right?
So it's interesting you bring up location. In the past, at least from the States' perspective, everything was getting offshored to India, Vietnam, South America, whatever. Follow the path, follow the money.
Mm-hmm.
Do we even need to offshore anymore?
For the industries that are highly automated or high valued, no. Going back to Rolex watches, right? It's very high value. The cost of producing watches does not change much compared to the price it's selling, whether a person is in India, for example, or Switzerland, right? Yeah, people in Switzerland, much more expensive. Very expensive, actually. But doesn't make much difference, right? Because of a $10,000 watch, you pay the person $10 or 100, doesn't make much difference, right? And the same thing goes for highly automated industry, right? If you can make, a huge volume of processors with 3 people doing oversight, doesn't matter where it's produced. The other things start to matter more. Not where it's produced. How much people involved in production cost. So if it's heavy on manual labor, you want to go cheaper. If it's not heavy on manual labor, doesn't matter. It can be made anywhere.
Well, that's sort of leading me into my next point is what kind of strategies we've been completely negative almost the whole time, or at least you have. I've been very positive. What kind of strategies can companies do to try to balance this out and try to preserve the human value where it matters?
Depends how you define where it matters. Like from my perspective, typing code is not something that matters. Making decisions, knowing why and how and what's or not, that's what really matters. And I don't see that being in danger right now. If anything, I think that it is even more important than it was before. Now, somebody else will not agree with me on what matters, just to be clear. So I know people who the purity of the code, matters, like visit tabs or spaces. What's the naming convention for the function? Things like that matters. Cool. And then that's a different discussion, right?
I think when those types of people's arguments go into play, it's like, okay, I buy that. And then I'm finding out they're using tons of third-party libraries. Not looking at source, but just using a library. It's like, well, wait a minute, time out. How do you know that what you're using is artisanal? You don't. You're trusting.
Oh, here's the thing. It's artisan. The things you see are artisanal. If you go back to Rolls-Royce, probably the people assembling Rolls-Royce are not, what's the word when you make iron, right? Kind of like they get parts and material from other places. They're just the final layer that gets assembled in an artisanal way, right? I'm not saying that that's right? But and then same thing with code. Oh, my 5 lines of code, they're they're amazing. Kind of like it's a work of art. Behind those 5 lines of code, there are 5,000 other lines of code that I couldn't care less. It's a bit hypocritical.
Not that you have an opinion on that or anything. Where do you think it's going to fall out? Okay, we're in 2025. Let's only look ahead 1 year. Used to, we would think 3 years, 5 years. I don't know that we can with this. But I do feel like we can think ahead. I mean, I say this. I say we can think ahead 1 year. But this whole agentic thing has really come to life in the past 6 to 7 months.
Yeah. It's moving faster than anything before. Just as whatever was happening before this was moving faster than whatever was happening before that, right? The speed increases, and then that's now the difference. People cannot wait for 10 years. Let's see what this is. Kind of like let's wait 10 years to make a decision whether we're going to go to cloud, or let's wait 5 years before we make a decision whether we're going to use Kubernetes. And if you notice that I intentionally said 10 years for cloud, 5 years for Kubernetes. Now it's a year or 2. That's how much you have. It's not too late, just to be clear. I don't think we are in very, very early stages. I don't think it's too late. If you never touched anything, if you haven't done it seriously, there is time. It's just not much. Half a year. In a year, almost every company will be using AI in some form or another. 1 year.
So you say by October, November of 2026, it will be the oddity and not for people to not be using it.
Yes, exactly. And just to be clear, just as it's oddity not to use Kubernetes now, but that does not mean that I'm saying that, hey, close to 100% of workloads in companies are in Kubernetes. Sometimes it's only 5. But every single company now, or significant percentage of companies, are using Kubernetes in some capacity or another. So if the explanation is, hey, a year from now, significant percentage of companies will be using AI in some capacity or another, without specifying how much of the workload is done through AI, then I can easily stand behind that. Easily. I mean, actually, let me rephrase. If the question is there a significant percentage of companies where people, whichever percentage of people are using AI or not, I would say that, yeah, significant number of companies have people using AI today. It's just not necessarily as a mandate from a company. It's almost like very often is shadow infrastructure. I doubt that there are many companies where you go and interview absolutely everybody and everybody says, no, AI, no. There is hardly such a company today. Now, this time next year, most of those companies will be using it in official capacity, for sure.
So what do you think? Head over to the Slack workspace, look for episode number 317, and leave your comments there.
We hope this episode was helpful to you. If you want to discuss it or ask a question, please reach out to us. Our contact information and a link to the Slack workspace are at devopsparadox.com/contact. If you subscribe through Apple Podcast, Be sure to leave us a review there. That helps other people discover this podcast. Go sign up right now at DevOpsParadox.com to receive an email whenever we drop the latest episode. Thank you for listening to DevOps Paradox.